This is East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Telly Edwards. Tonight's top stories from East Asia. Now, China's top diplomat now in talks with Pakistan and Afghanistan to deepen ties, fresh out of positive talks in India. But can Beijing really court Islamabad while staying close to Delhi? South Korea responds after North Korea firmly rejected President Lee Jae-myung's peace overtures. The presidential office in Seoul says that sharp criticism from Kim Jong-un's sister distorts Mr. Lee's intentions. Now, Japan's prime minister proposing a new economic zone linking Africa and the Indian Ocean, aiming to tap the continent's potential as China expands its reach. A Hong Kong Stock Exchange operator reports its best ever half-year revenue, bolstered by a surge in IPOs and trading activity. Also in East Asia tonight, legal woes for South Korea's former president and his wife are far from over. Yoon Suk-yeol is still being investigated for insurrection, while his wife is now also behind bars. CNA's Grace Shin breaks down the political situation for us. China's South Asia blitz continues. Its top diplomat has landed in Afghanistan, fresh from India, for a new round of discussions with Afghan and Pakistani officials. Now, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar also arrived in Kabul this afternoon. Mr. Wang and Mr. Dar are both being hosted by the Taliban's acting Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi. Now, the three last met in Beijing in May, when Islamabad and Kabul agreed in principle to exchange ambassadors and step up their diplomatic contact. You are looking at footage of Mr. Dar leaving for Kabul. Analysts say that China has played a significant role in de-escalating tensions between Pakistan and the Taliban regime. Today's talks in Afghanistan are expected to build on their warming ties and boost Islamabad and Kabul's overall cooperation with Beijing. Now, Mr. Wang's South Asia tour continues after Afghanistan. He is headed to Pakistan next. And for more on this developing story, we have our correspondents, Hira Mustafa in Islamabad and Tanya Guan in Shanghai. Well, Hira, first to you. Pakistan also involved in trilateral talks at Afghanistan's capital. What exactly did delegates discuss there?
Well, absolutely. As you mentioned, that Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar is currently in Kabul, and the discussions are ongoing right now between China, Pakistan and Afghanistan. The topic that is going to dominate discussion between the three countries is going to be counterterrorism, as many of the experts who are speaking to are telling us that security is something which Pakistan is also concerned about because Pakistan is facing mounting security threats on its western borders that are neighboring Afghanistan, and Pakistan claims that Afghanistan is providing a safe haven to Afghanistan, and the militants are operating using Afghanistan soil, carrying out the terrorist activities in Pakistan. And in the past also we have seen an uptick of the militant activity in Pakistan's Balochistan province, which is home to significant Chinese investments. And we have seen particular militant groups targeting the Chinese infrastructure in Balochistan province and the Chinese nationals who are working on these projects. So discussions will be more focused on countering terrorism, and analysts in Islamabad are also telling us that China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi is going to be instrumental in bringing the two countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, as you talked about, warming of relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan, is because of the Chinese officials playing their role in bringing the two countries. And this is what we are going to see in next couple of hours, that what's the outcome of these discussions.
And here, after Afghanistan, Mr. Wang Yi, he is headed to Pakistan. What can we expect there?
Well, absolutely. The experts who we're speaking to in the capital are telling us that China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Islamabad is a very significant one. The timing is very important as it's coming at a time when the regional dynamics in South Asia are changing. And they say that China's foreign minister's visit to Pakistan is going to further consolidate the relationship between the two countries, as both Islamabad and Beijing view the relationship between the two nations in terms of all-weather friendship. And this is what's going to be reflected in the 6th China-Pakistan strategic dialogue that is due to happen tomorrow. They say that in this strategic dialogue, defense cooperation is something which is going to be discussed, as Pakistan's army chief also visited Beijing in July in terms of boosting the defense and military cooperation. Apart from this, they also say that economic cooperation is something which is also likely to be discussed, as both Beijing and Islamabad are keen to expedite the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor Phase 2. And in that capacity, business-to-business cooperation is something which both the countries are looking at. So they say that this visit of China's foreign minister to Islamabad is of great importance to Pakistan.
Well, thanks for that, Hira. I just want to bring Yu Guan in now to get China's perspective on things. It looks like China, they will have to balance this diplomacy between rivals Pakistan and India, but how are they going to do that?
Well, coincidentally, that's essentially the same question a reporter asked the Foreign Ministry spokesperson of China yesterday. Now, in response, the Chinese spokesperson says that both countries are important neighbors, both Pakistan and India. So, as a matter of principle, China's policy is to develop friendly and cooperative relations with both. But of course, with no active territorial dispute, China's relationship with Pakistan is really on a completely different level. While in India, Wang Yi is seeking to establish stability, dialogue, and de-escalation of tensions. But with Pakistan, Wang Yi is there to reinforce an all-weather partnership. In the words of his spokesperson back home, China and Pakistan are ironclad friends. Now, that's the kind of language you don't see China putting on India, right? For China, Pakistan is a very important strategic partner. If you pull out a map and you can easily see that Pakistan can give China an indirect access to the Arabian Sea. Now, this gives China an important way to bypass the Strait of Malacca, which the U.S. Navy could block in a conflict. Now, Pakistan could also be the gateway for oil and gas from the Middle East. Now, what's more, being a Muslim-majority country, having Pakistan as an ally also helps China in other ways. For example, in managing its Muslim-majority Xinjiang region. Pakistan can help stop militant networks from crossing over and also support Beijing on the international stage on Xinjiang or Uyghur issues within international bodies. What's more, Pakistan is, of course, a huge market for China's technology and also one of the largest buyers of Chinese arms. Over 80% of Pakistan arms imports now come from China. Observers note that having Pakistan as a staunch ally in South Asia can also act as a strategic counterweight to India in the region. And we can see that today with the trilateral foreign ministers meeting, China also sees Pakistan as a partner it can work with to stabilize countries like Afghanistan.
And Yu Guan, there's also China's Belt and Road Initiative. How is Pakistan benefiting from that?
Well, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor remains the Belt and Roads Initiative's flagship, and on the ground, Pakistan is receiving transformed transportation networks, improved energy generation, industrial development, and digital infrastructure, all largely fueled by this Belt and Road Initiative. Now, Pakistan has thousands of nationals as well working on projects grouped under this China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. The projects for coal-based power plants, wind, solar, and hydropower solves a long-standing problem within Pakistan with power outages and energy shortages. Now, these shortages has held back economic growth and discouraged investment, so they are quite important for Pakistan. The Gwadar port, as well, is a vital part of the project and is being upgraded to be a deep-sea port capable of unloading large volumes of cargo. Now, this development allows the port to potentially become a major trading hub that links Africa, Central Asia, and the Middle East through Pakistan. Of course, for China, that's a win-win situation because, as we mentioned earlier, Pakistan then can serve as an alternative corridor to the Arabian Sea. Otelli?
Well, many thanks for that, Tan Yu-Guan in Shanghai. And later in the program, we will return to this story and a deep dive with an expert, Andrew Small from the German Marshall Fund's Indo-Pacific program. We're going to be asking him as well how Beijing will be managing to balance this act between rivals India and Pakistan. So do stay tuned for that. Before his visit to Afghanistan, Wang Yi wrapped up a two-day visit to New Delhi, where he met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. China and India have pledged to improve ties by resuming direct flights, easing visas, as well as boosting trade and investment. Mr. Modi said that both countries have entered a steady development track, guided by mutual respect and sensitivity to each other's interests. Prime Minister Modi, in a post on X, said that he was glad to meet with Foreign Minister Wang and added that India-China relations have made steady progress since his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Kazan last year. China and India have been cautiously rebuilding ties damaged by a border clash in 2020. Well, the violence, the worst in decades, left 20 Indian soldiers and 4 Chinese soldiers dead and led to a freeze in high-level political engagement. Coming up next on East Asia Tonight, a tech slump on Wall Street triggers a retreat in stocks in East Asia. Plus, sky's the limit for China's low-altitude economy as drone shows surge in popularity.
So, Singapore, I've never been there.
1,000 Singapores can house the whole world.
Singapore is a city of juxtaposition.
The story of cities, Metropolis, coming soon on CNA.
The students are here not just to learn.
We strongly feel that our students should also cultivate their heart to serve society.
So they reach out to communities near and far.
I have always loved to work with children.
I practice active listening to understand the elders' point of view.
We fulfill the unmet healthcare needs of underprivileged Cambodians.
Watch Innovations That Matter, Thursday on CNA.
Brought to you by the National University of Singapore.
We're in a chaotic moment.
Midnight later tonight here in Thailand, it's too little too late.
And I asked whether there's a political element to it. Nobody can exactly tell you why.
Look, things are never perfect when you're engaged in politics. Each one doing what each one wants.
So what's the United Nations doing amidst this world of supreme chaos?
Pushing for answers every night on Asia Tonight.
On this episode of Singapore Hour, it's island thrills and seaside chills at this waterfront town.
Prawning is something that is very unique to Mongolians.
Plus, the secrets to staying chic on the cheap.
Auntie and uncle look at you. Yeah, I think you're doing something right. Yeah.
And a duo adding a dash of Balkan spice to paradise. Your weekly dose of what's fresh and fun on Singapore Hour, Friday on CNA.
This song has been 3 months in the making. Going on a journey. It all started because I wanted to find the story of Singapore in objects around us. Oh. The hunt has taken me to some unexpected places. Just gonna hide behind you. I met surprising people. Are you who I'm looking for? Oh, I love you so much. And animals. Where are Mick? I also had to relive some horrible memories. You were one of the people who first started streaming in secondary school.
Yes.
Chinese E.
Yeah, I teach you word by word. Li,
Li,
Ti,
地呼声，立地呼声。哇！
I'll be revealing some pretty surprising objects with hidden stories of Singapore.
This uniform was not made for Singapore Airlines.
Singapore hidden in 40 objects. Starts 1st September, Monday on CNA.
Hello again. It's time now for your business news with Roland Lim. So, Roland, Hong Kong Stock Exchange operator, reporting results for the first half of the year. Do we have any surprises there?
No. In fact, the results are reaffirming the bourse's growth momentum built on the back of many market reforms and a revival in listing activity. But first, Asian tech stocks falling today, tracking declines in their American peers. SoftBank ending the day. Well, let's have a look. Down 7.1%, and semiconductor giants Advantest also lower by 5.7%. Taiwan's TSMC 4.2 in the red, and South Korea's SK Hynix down by 2.9 nearly. Now, the slump comes after Wall Street investors dumped tech stocks amid growing concerns about the artificial intelligence boom, which has driven up the valuations of tech giants such as Nvidia and Microsoft. Nvidia falling 3.5% overnight, dragging down the Nasdaq by almost 1.5%. It's the worst or second worst showing since the tariff shock back in April. But analysts say uncertainty about this week's U.S. Fed symposium in Wyoming has spurred investors to take profits. Investors are watchful of any hints about a rate cut by Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Now, stocks in Greater China markets rebounded on trade talk optimism, rising to the highest level since 2015. Investors are closely watching any updates from Beijing after U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that Washington had very good talks with China regarding tariffs. The two countries are trying to reach a trade deal during a pause in tariff implementation. Chinese currency currently flat against the greenback on the U.S. Fed's key Jackson Hole symposium. China has kept its benchmark lending rates unchanged for the third month in August. Analysts say China's policymakers are placing greater emphasis on structural policies aimed at specific sectors to support the economy. In Hong Kong, Pop Mart shares rose the most in nearly 4 months after the CEO announced plans to launch a new mini Labubu and said that the firm could easily surpass its annual sales projection. Now, the Labubu doll maker reported a nearly 400% jump in first half net profits thanks to high demand for its toys. Year to date, it has gone up by about 200%. And Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi reversing earlier losses after it reported solid revenue growth of more than 30% yesterday. Drone shows are surging in popularity worldwide, entertaining large crowds through coordinated displays. China's drone industry has capitalized on the boom, an area of growth in an economy largely marked by deflationary pressures brought on by intense competition.
China's low-altitude economy is taking off. In June, a show featuring nearly 12,000 drones enchanted residents of Chongqing City, setting a new Guinness World Record. Spectacles like these are becoming increasingly common, spurring another area of growth in China's economy.
市场是越来越庞大，然后像现在的节庆、旅游宣传，包括群众观赏这一块，喜欢的人是越来越多。我们公司去年这一块的营收在7000万元左右，我们对未来非常有信心。
These displays require coordination, which has created a demand for flight planners, who say there is a very thin margin of error for the some 200 shows held this year alone.
因为我们现在不是面对单机，而是成百上千架，所以他们彼此之间要进行一个协同。所以你看现在他们每架之间都要间隔1.8米以上，对，然后还要精确到秒的这个位置跟灯光的变换，然后包括它的这个飞行逻辑和美感。 感也要去进行一个保证，所以编程的话就必须做到精细扎实、滴水不漏。
电脑屏幕上这些密密麻麻的光点，就是对应着一台一台无人机。我们无人机起飞以后，就会组成我们提前预设好的造型。那上千架无人机在空中飞行，如何做到不碰撞？最重要的就是通过编写好的程序来规划无人机的飞行路线。
Wu and Xu work for the drone department of the Jiangxi AeroFuture General Aviation Company, which is offering a salary starting at 10,000 yuan or nearly $1,400 per month for new hires. Xu, who majored in 3D printing in university, made the switch in 2021 from a job doing architectural modeling and design after he saw the potential of the drone industry. A report by an education consultancy firm shows that almost 60% of China's fresh graduates last year took home a salary of less than 6,000 yuan, or about $840, with high-paying jobs in the tech industry paying up to $1,250. Wage growth in China has been sluggish since the COVID-19 pandemic, with second quarter growth at only 3.9% on year, according to Goldman Sachs. While much of China's economy has struggled with intense competition suppressing growth, it seems the sky's the limit for these drone displays.
As mentioned earlier, Hong Kong Stock Exchange operator turning in its best ever half-year revenue, driven by an increase in daily trading and a flourish of IPOs, with more Chinese companies opting to list in the city instead of Wall Street amid geopolitical tensions with the US. The revenue of Hong Kong exchanges and clearing reached 14.1 billion Hong Kong dollars. That's about 1.8 billion the past 6 months. And the profit rose almost 40% to a record 8.52 billion Hong Kong. That's about 1.09 billion US. Earnings per share rose to $6.74 Hong Kong from 4.84. And it declared an interim dividend of 6 Hong Kong dollars. And that's up from 4.36 last year. HKEX says average daily equities turnover, or the buying and selling of stocks, rose 122% in the first half to around $28.5 billion. Southbound stock trading, where mainland investors trade Hong Kong shares, was up nearly 200%. HKEX Chief Executive Bonnie Chan said that cash markets, derivatives and stock connect volumes reached new heights that helped push half-yearly revenue and profit to their best ever. The benchmark Hang Seng Index is also up almost 20% year-to-date, making it one of the world's best-performing major equities markets. 44 new listings debuted on the HKEX in the first half, raising about $14 billion. Analysts say the surge has been driven by foreign investors' return to buying Chinese stocks, despite President Trump's tariffs package and geopolitical tensions. Hong Kong exchanges and clearing stock up 1.71% today after the results were out. The Hong Kong stock market has regained ground but remains well below pre-pandemic levels. Market volatility combined with global uncertainty and the US-China trade war has turned art into a rare bright spot, attracting a new wave of investors seeking alternative investments. CNA's Mei Wong reports.
More than meets the eye. For art investors, this is not just a decoration.
When I talked with some collectors, family offices in Hong Kong, I think maybe 10 years ago, no one considered to put this as a portfolio. Maybe they just collected because of their personal interest. Now the family offices, when they set up their portfolio assets, they consider to put one digit, or some family offices want to put 10% of their portfolio into art because very special characters of art.
A report released in March this year said the global market share of Hong Kong and mainland China's modern and contemporary art doubled from 7% in 2015 to 14% last year. The China Art Market Report said that Asian art is attracting a growing segment of young collectors. It cited that almost 40% of bidders and buyers in Asia now are below 44 years old. Some experts believe that as art becomes more affordable and accessible, investors may increasingly turn to it as a financial asset. Previously, investing in art required millions of dollars, But today, investors can enter the market with works priced below $50,000. One example is that piece over there, which is having a starting bid of about $1,500. Young investors are also exploring beyond conventional pieces and eyeing digital art or AI-generated art today. According to Dublin-based consultancy Arts Economics, global art sales fell 12% in 2024, marking the second yearly drop since 2022. Yet smaller dealers with turnover less than $250,000 grew 17%, and auctions under $5,000 also rose, showing resilience at the lower end of the market despite weakness at the top.
We are seeing an emergence of a new segment of customers coming into the market, which are the Gen Z, the millennials, which is very exciting. And they are actually propping up what we call the accessible art pieces. And accessible art pieces are pieces that are about $50,000. Yep. So this is contributing to a lot of the growth that we're seeing.
Art's low correlation with conventional investments such as stocks and bonds has made it an attractive option during volatile markets.
Generally, there are more and more people getting interested in art, especially some people treat it as an alternative investment, say, for their financial instruments or financial market, because it is less sensitive to, say, inflation periods, less sensitive to currency fluctuations like those other paper assets, etc.
While the Hong Kong stock market has bounced back with an 18% gain last year and a strong rally into mid-2025, the Hang Seng Index remains well below its pre-pandemic peak.
买这个艺术品会更多一点，因为其实艺术品它也是具有一些历史性和创造性、想象力的这种情况，所以说不论时间怎么去变化，它还是偏向于股票来说更加保值一点的。
现在的国际关系它是比较不稳定的啊，比如说我们就是跟这个以非常具有代表性的中美之间的关系，它对国际上面的金融经济影响特别的大。其实，那这个时候。如果就对普通年轻人来讲，他选择股票的风险可能会特别大，那比较而言，艺术的话，它的长期性和增长价值可能会更高一些。
If recent trends are any guide, art transactions may continue to rise as younger buyers and new investors enter more affordable segments, even if overall growth remains muted. Mei Wong, CNA, Hong Kong.
And you're up to date with the business news. Shelly.
Thanks so very much for the business report, Roland. Well, we are going to go for a break now, but coming up next on East Asia Tonight, Wang Yi's South Asia tour continues with a visit to Afghanistan and Pakistan after India. We discuss Beijing's interest in the region with Andrew Small of the German Marshall Fund.
In Singapore, something happens every minute, each event vying for your attention. We're always there to cover the news. But what if we also give you more? What if we told you we go deep into the data, find stories you care about, and explain issues clearly, from housing to healthcare, security to sustainability? We give you the bigger picture on Singapore Tonight.
3, 2, 1.
Hello and good evening. I'm Shahida Othman. Tonight's top stories.
The ideas, aspirations and attitudes of Singaporeans are changing the nation that raised them.
Passionate Singaporeans living out their very ambitious dreams.
We're looking to write a story of greatness of extraordinary people impacting communities.
I guess a part of me wanted to connect even deeper with the people.
There's no point playing it safe. Safe will always be forgotten.
If we as Singaporeans are able to have a satellite that we can truly say was conceived, designed, engineered and built in Singapore. Wow, how wonderful would it be?
This is Singapore, we don't give up.
Hello again, you're watching East Asia Tonight, and here are the headlines we're following. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is in Afghanistan for trilateral talks with Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar and host Taliban's acting Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi. Kim Jong-un's influential sister, Kim Yo-jong, says that Seoul is not a diplomatic partner to Pyongyang in response to South Korea's peace overtures. The presidential office in Seoul says it regrets those remarks. And Japan is proposing an economic zone which encompasses Africa and the Indian Ocean region as Tokyo hosts African leaders for a 3-day development conference. Well, for more analysis, let's bring in Andrew Small, a senior fellow with German Marshall Fund's Indo-Pacific program. He joins us from Berlin, and he's going to walk us through Wang Yi's visit to Pakistan. First up, Andrew, thanks for joining us. From New Delhi to Islamabad, Wang Yi is trying to sort of present China as a friend to both parties. But how does Beijing really manage this balancing act between India and its fierce rival Pakistan?
I mean, I think there's an understanding that it's not a balance in the sense that they have a deep, long-standing defense relationship with Pakistan, and the tensions are still extremely high with India. The two sides understand themselves as pretty fierce competitors, but there's an opening at the moment to try to stabilize relations with India. I think the deterioration that we saw after the cross-border conflict in 2020, 2021, it's been a virtual freeze in a lot of the ties between the two sides. And in recent months, even before the US-India tensions worsened, I think there was an opportunity to try to upgrade and stabilize and pull things back up a notch. And so India is still happy to move ahead with that, despite the deep involvement that China had in support to the Pakistani military during the two sides' cross-border conflict earlier this year. So I think with Pakistan, it's a kind of continuation. With India, there's a sort of temporary opportunity for an upgrade.
And of course, neutrality is tested most sharply in the place where India and Pakistan have clashed, and that's in Kashmir. Pakistan, using Chinese-made jets in that conflict with India, and China openly backing Islamabad's sovereignty claims, for instance. So does this make Beijing then party to the Kashmir dispute?
It is, of course, by virtue of its own borders in Kashmir, a long-standing party to the dispute. The interesting thing that is the most recent development is that the involvement of Chinese weapons systems. China's always supported the Pakistani army. It's been a set of platforms on the Pakistani side that have always deeply involved Chinese kit, basically since 1965. But the Chinese involvement in the technology spine of the Pakistani military brings them into more active involvement in some of these conflicts now. It means that China's involved in targeting information and things like that was not the case in previous decades. And this most recent border altercation between the two sides was the first time that you saw the most advanced Chinese kit and basically an all-Chinese set of platforms on the Pakistani side. So certainly China is more embroiled in these kind of cross cross-border incidents and conflicts than it was in the past, when it could kind of sit this out a little more. But it's been something that, in some sense or other, it's always been a party to this. It's always been on the side of Pakistan. Basically, that was how the two sides forged their partnership in the first place.
Yeah, and China did say that they are ironclad friends in reference to Pakistan, and they haven't used that term on India. But in terms of China's military supplies to Pakistan, do we know, Andrew, how extensive are they right now?
I mean, pretty much the overwhelming majority of Pakistani kit is now Chinese. The sales in the last few years, it's gone up to about 80% of the Pakistani arms purchases have come from China. But China has been a majority supplier to the Pakistani military over the last few decades. The thing that's different now, aside from, as mentioned, the kind of technology spine of things, is that advanced PLA kit is now coming into play. It used to be that when it came to fighter jets, when it came to some of the missile defense systems and things, China was not so closely involved in some of these areas. But over the last decade or so, this is something that Pakistan has integrated more and more into its systems. And so this was the kind of first time between Pakistan and India that you saw essentially an all Chinese set of integrated platforms on the Pakistani side. So that's an important threshold for the two sides to have crossed. And of course, between the US and Pakistan, for a number of years now, the US has been unwilling to provide a lot of the systems that they had in the previous decades, which the Pakistanis would still, of course, like. So the balance has tilted even more towards Chinese supplies in the last few years. And as PLA capabilities advance, that becomes more and more important to the Pakistani side in maintaining conventional deterrence. On the nuclear side and missile side, China's always been integral to the Pakistani program, basically since the 70s and 80s and into the late 80s and 90s. So that's been a point of continuity for some time. The newer thing has been these advanced conventional platforms.
So when it comes to Chinese versus Western hardware, I mean, as you've mentioned, we've seen all these Chinese-made jets going up against India's French-made ones. What does this say about the balance between the Western and Chinese military tech in South Asia?
Well, this was, from the PLA's perspective, a really interesting and rare opportunity to test out their platforms against some of the most advanced Western kit, some of the platforms even mirroring what you might see in Taiwan and some other countries in East Asia as well. It wasn't the very highest end of PLA capabilities, but I think the chance to look at these platforms in an integrated way, not just the aircraft themselves on the missiles, but the targeting systems and various other elements, was kind of an interesting test for them to see how PLA platforms might hold up against comparable kit on the Western side. And in some areas, they performed well, particularly in being able to shoot down several Indian fighter jets. They were still not completely clear on the exact numbers. The air defense systems of the Chinese in Pakistan performed less well, and there's been discussions about how to upgrade some of these. But I think it's been treated on the Chinese side as a relative success, and they've been making the argument to countries, including, of course, Iran and certain others, that part of Pakistan's success came precisely in integrating this array of Chinese platforms versus the kind of more diffuse set of systems that you've seen on the Indian side. Though on the Indian side as well, some of those systems, particularly the Russian missile defense systems, also performed strongly. And I think there's a lot of debates about whether there were some mistakes made on the Indian side that led to the shooting down of some of the fighter jets. So all sides are trying to take lessons from this. There's a lot of push on the Chinese side at the moment, though, to use this as a sort of showcase for the success or seeming success of some of the Chinese platforms.
And Andrew, of course, all of this is watched very closely by Washington as well. So in the event, I mean, China, as we have seen, they're easing tensions with India while also deepening this ironclad partnership with Pakistan. What does that mean for Washington's strategy in the Indo-Pacific then?
Well, it's a challenging moment on all sides because what you, of course, are seeing at the moment is very high levels of tension between the US and India over, in particular, the trade relationship, but the trade relationship as it affects India's ties with Russia because of the sort of punitive, essentially, tariffs that have been put in place as a result of India's oil purchases from Russia. And simultaneously, you've had a lot of concerns on the Indian side about Trump claiming credit for the eventual settlement of the altercation between the two sides and stepping back into this kind of both-handed, even-handed role that Washington had played in the past, but where in the decade preceding this, I think there's been a big US tilt towards India. And instead, you even saw the Pakistani chief of army staff meeting with Trump on a very kind of rare privilege. So you're seeing a kind of unusual level of flux on the US approach to Southeast Asia at the moment. On the US-Pakistan side, this is something where China's always been happy to see improved US-Pakistan ties if it comes to the advantage of the Pakistani military and the military systems that they have, and to some extent at India's disadvantage. So I don't think that China necessarily minds what's going on between the US and Pakistan. And I think they're quite pleased, certainly, to see the US-India tensions at the level they are, which is, of course, feeding into the Wang Yi visit and the sense that there's some fresh opportunities for the two sides to take another look at some areas of cooperation in their relationship, again, despite, I think, the understanding that both sides are going to continue to have these deep structural tensions and that the China-Pakistan relationship is going to remain the primary military and intelligence relationship that China has in the region.
All right, many thanks for your insights. A great discussion there. Andrew Small, Senior Fellow with German Marshall Fund's Indo-Pacific Program. Now, in other news, Japan has proposed an economic zone which encompasses the Indian Ocean region and Africa as Tokyo hosts African leaders for a 3-day development conference. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba is seeking to strengthen ties with African nations in efforts to gain a foothold in a region which China has increasing popularity in. The proposed Economic Region Initiative of Indian Ocean Africa aims to bolster growth in the area through further connecting the continent and Indian Ocean nations. The plan hopes to expand trade and investment ties with African countries. Mr. Ishiba made the announcement during the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development that's held in the port city of Yokohama. Discussions will center on 3 core themes of peace and stability, economic and social issues. Leaders from 50 African nations and officials from international organizations, including UN Chief Antonio Guterres, will be participating. The 3-day international aid meeting is hosted by Japan and dates all the way back to 1993. It was last held in Tunisia 3 years ago. Well, time now for another break, but coming up next on East Asia tonight, South Korea's former president, former First Lady and former Prime Minister, all under legal investigations since the failed martial law bid last year. We look at the fallout next.
Who are we waiting for at the airport?
Is his name Chase?
No, he's baby bird.
It's believed each lived about 5 minutes after swallowing a mixture of cyanide.
It's kind of like a proof for me that I wasn't unwanted.
Mary!
Come on over.
The students are here not just to learn.
We strongly feel that our students should also cultivate their heart to serve society.
So they reach out to communities near and far.
I have always loved to work with children.
I practice active listening to understand the elders' point of view.
We fulfill the unmet healthcare needs of underprivileged Cambodians.
Watch Innovations That Matter, Thursday on CNA.
Brought to you by the National University of Singapore.
On this episode of Singapore Hour, it's island thrills and seaside chills at this waterfront town.
Prawning is something that is very unique to Mongolians.
Plus, the secrets to staying chic on the cheap.
Auntie and uncle look at you. Yeah, I think you're doing something right. Yeah.
And a duo adding a dash of Balkan spice to paradise. Your weekly dose of what's fresh and fun on Singapore Hour, Friday on CNA.
Warung Pak Safari is the first on the Michelin Beef Gourmand list, selling mee soto, mee rebus.
It's more than 20 spices on the mee soto. 2023, when we got the Big Gourmand.
A little bit stressed because
at least 30% of people increase. The pressure is always there because I have to keep up.
I Am a Hawker, the Bib Gourmand edition, Saturday on CNA.
To get the story of separation, you have to see what are all those secrets that are embedded in all of those files.
The cabinet was not at all unanimous and united when presented with the ultimatum to sign the separation agreement.
North Korea has dismissed the moves by South Korea to reduce tension on the peninsula, saying that Seoul can never be a diplomatic partner. Kim Yo-jong, the sister of leader Kim Jong-un, says that the South had been talking about peace while still holding military drills with the U.S. Kim Yo-jong took aim at South Korean President Yi, in her words, carried on state media, saying that he is, quote, not the sort of man who will change the course of history. Well, in response, President Yi's office said it regretted the words from Pyongyang, calling it a distortion of Seoul's efforts to rebuild trust. Yi's office nevertheless says that they remain committed to peace efforts, hoping that this will promote stability for both Seoul and Pyongyang. In an ongoing joint military exercise, Washington and Seoul have tested an upgraded response to Pyongyang's nuclear threats, deploying advanced military technology. The allies have maintained that the exercises are purely defensive. South Korea has postponed some field training to later in the year because of extreme heat, which some observers suggest could also be a goodwill gesture toward Pyongyang. Meantime, South Korea is still grappling with the political and legal storm unleashed by ousted President Yoon Suk-yeol's failed martial law decree last December. Well, the former president and several key cabinet members are facing repeated rounds of questioning on charges tied to insurrection. At the center of attention is a former prime minister and briefly acting President Han Duck-soo, who returns to the special counsel's office this Friday. Meanwhile, Yoon's wife, a former First Lady Kim Kyun-hee, remains behind bars after her detention was formally extended until August 31st. With both Yoon's inner circle and his own family under mounting legal pressure, South Korea is entering unprecedented territory. A former president and his wife and a former prime minister all under criminal prosecution. So let's find out what these developments mean for the country's political landscape and its institutions. And Grace Shin, she is here with us in the studio. Great to have you, Grace. So this legal quagmire, help us break it down. Where are we with the investigations to Yoon and his wife, as well as with former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo?
Right, as you mentioned, many high-profile figures are involved. The former president, Yoon Suk-yeol, has consistently refused to appear for questioning, sticking to his narrative that the December 3rd martial law decree was simply a temporary measure to push back against an opposition-controlled National Assembly. Now, he has argued that it only lasted 2 hours, no civilians were hurt, and it shouldn't be compared to past military dictatorships. So he's sticking to the rhetoric that it wasn't insurrection at all. And after this whole political fiasco caused by last year's martial law decree, Yoon was first arrested on Jan 15th this year, becoming the nation's first sitting president to be arrested. Now, since the special counsel has gathered evidence suggesting Yoon privately urged senior officials to actually not hesitate using force if necessary. And weekly trial sessions for Yoon begin from September 26th. And as you can see on the timeline, he has actually already been arrested and indicted for insurrection and abuse of power. But this investigation doesn't just stop with Yoon. 6 cabinet members who joined him on the night of the decree are also under scrutiny. In the spotlight now is, as you mentioned, former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who was grilled for more than 16 hours this week alone. Now, he's accused of failing to stop the decree despite being the second in command. And investigators suspect that he may have even tried to cover the legal flaws by falsifying documentation. Now, Han says that he tried to restrain Yoon by persuading other cabinet members who were present to not impose the martial law decree, but prosecutors are weighing in for a potential arrest warrant. Now, another cabinet member is former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min, who's already under arrest on charges of participating in attempted insurrection, abusing his authority to suppress the media, and committing perjury before the Constitutional Court. And I think the highlight in Korean politics right now is more on to the former First Lady Kim Gon-hee, because she has many charges against her. She was detained on August 12th, and her detention was just extended to August 31st, which indicates that she hasn't been speaking up much to the questioning. Now, prosecutors must decide on indictment within that window. That's only a few days now. And she has skipped some summons citing health concerns. But you need to know what the core is for her charges. At the core, the case against Kim Gon-hee rests on 4 areas. If you take a look at the screen, the first is stock manipulation linked to illegal trading schemes around Deutsche Motors. She has denied, saying that she doesn't know anything related to stocks at all. The second is real estate speculation, having bought property with insider information. And the third, and quite notorious one, is for her to have received luxury gifts and bribery, including high-end jewelry worth tens of thousands of dollars, and a luxury watch priced at more than $40,000. Now, she also has lobbying ties to shamans and cult-like figures who allegedly provided not only favors and cover, but also bribery during her husband's presidency.
Yeah, and it appears like this investigation is going to take quite a while. But what can we expect, though, in the next few months?
I think the reason why people think that this investigation is dragging on for quite a few months more than like previous cases is for several reasons. First, the complexity and scope of this investigation is definitely staggering. It involves, as we mentioned, multiple high top figures, a former president, his wife, and a former prime minister on a wide range of allegations, including insurrection, corruption, influence peddling, and through being involved with cult-like networks. Now, second, there are reverse narratives that have been popping up following the martial law decree, some saying that they haven't been involved at all, but evidence suggesting the other, and also differing levels of cooperation. You should take into account that the former prime minister, he has been questioned for hours, whereas Kim Gon-hee, she largely refused to speak up, citing health issues. Now, the barometer for how swift this investigation is going would actually be the Park Geun-hye impeachment case. She was the first female president of South Korea to be impeached in December 2016. She was removed by March of 2017 and then sentenced by April 2018. That's a lot of figures there, but that all happened within 16 months. Now, Yoon's impeachment to removal timeline was 3 weeks longer than Park Geun-hye, but people are saying that the final decision to be made for his sentence will take a much longer period of time because of the allegations and the key figures involved. Not to mention, there has been growing public mistrust, fatigue. Koreans are exhausted by this legal saga while contending with economic pressures, trade tensions, and as we heard before, ties with North Korea, with Pyongyang not saying that it would be trying to mend ties with Seoul. So a worry lingers that this is simply a recurring pattern in Korean politics, and many have seen it before. The government in power prosecutes the opposition, only for those figures to be pardoned once the political wind shifts.
So this fatigue you've mentioned, and it feels like, it's a repeat of what's happened in the past. Does it then mean that ordinary South Koreans, they've just basically tuned out to what's happening?
But I don't think that the regular South Korean would have tuned out, because December 3rd of 2024 marks a deepening part of South Korea's modern political history. Many were out on the streets trying to oust the former President Yoon Suk-yeol because he had imposed the martial law. So public reaction in South Korea is deeply mixed. There is a sense of vindication. Many citizens feel it's time that presidents and their families face accountability, not immunity, especially since one thought he had the power to impose a martial law. But on the other hand, as I mentioned before, Many are fearing that this is just another pattern, seeing an opposition party come into power and then trying to persecute the other. And then once the political wind shifts, it's going to be happening again. So for many South Koreans, the bigger question is this going to be an account of true accountability or just another round of political score settling that really risks eroding trust in the system?
All right, so we still have to wait and see what comes out of the trial. Thanks so very much, Grace, for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you.
All right, shifting our attention now to China. Well, it's set to unveil its latest military hardware in a parade on September 3rd. All domestically produced and some making their public debut. The event is set to mark 80 years since the end of World War II, following Japan's surrender.
可以说，这次受阅的武器装备、信息化、智能化程度都比较高，充分体现我军适应科技发展 和战争形态演变，打赢未来战争的强大能力。
Preparations for the parade are in full swing, and media, including us, CNA, were brought on a government-organized tour to one of the training sites in Beijing today. The soldiers performed foot drills, and the military band was rehearsing. It's only the second time China is holding such a parade to mark the World War II anniversary. Now, officials say that tens of thousands of people and hundreds of aircraft, as well as ground equipment, will be mobilized. The Victory Day parade is expected to last 70 minutes, with Chinese President Xi Jinping to review the troops at Beijing's Tiananmen Square. Other world leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, are set to be present. Now, at a news conference today, officials revealed that fourth-generation fighter jets, new tanks and anti-drone systems will be among the equipment on display. Also, China's heavy weapons and hypersonic precision strike systems. This at a time of tensions in the Taiwan Strait and South China Sea.
我们愿同世界上爱好和平的国家和人民一道，以史为鉴。从第二次世界大战的 深刻教训和反法西斯战争的伟大胜利中，汲取智慧和力量，坚持弘扬正确二战史观，坚决维护战后国际秩序，坚定捍卫国际公平正义。
And that wraps up East Asia tonight. Don't forget your headlines anytime at cna.asia. And look us up on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for watching.